Hello, my name is Jason Elsenrott, and I am the team lead of solution engineering for Hyland, and I'm going to walk you through a demonstration of Brainware for transcripts today. Just so you know, I'm going to utilize this with Hyland OnBase Enterprise Content Management System, but really Brainware for transcripts could be used with any other document management or enterprise content management system out there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is capture some transcripts into the system so we can send them to Brainware for transcripts for additional processing. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the OnBase Unity client, and from here I'm going to go to batch scanning so I can capture documents or transcripts into the system. So there are a couple of things really with capturing that we should probably discuss, and one would be the scanning of transcripts into the system. You can certainly scan these transcripts into Brainware, into your ECM system, but the important thing to note is that you would need to send them through an image cleanup service, and most likely we could help you with setting up the image cleanup service, and that's important so we can remove the background images and watermarks that come on the back or on those paper transcripts. So it's important to get those transcripts on a nice and white, clean background so we can get good OCR results. And we're going to talk about OCR in more detail here in a few minutes. Also, if you're receiving transcripts from a third-party transcript service, typically those are received as a PDF. We would be able to capture in those PDFs and run those through the Brainware for transcripts so we can extract the data off of those transcripts as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just sweep some transcripts into the system or import them in. And I'm going to import them from a particular directory. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and import those. And whenever I could do images only, I could do other files again like a PDF as well if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and just sweep those in. So you can see over here that the documents are now coming into OnBase. And at this point in time, I would have the ability to QA or review these documents to make sure that they were scanned in correctly. You can see my first transcript is a military transcript. It's 6 pages. Go to the next one. We have a college transcript. And we had, what I brought in was really 2 college transcripts, 2 high school transcripts, and also a military transcript. So I wanted to do a good combination of all the different types of transcripts that you could potentially be running through Brainware. Now whenever I click the Go to Batch icon, it's actually going to take these transcripts and send them to Brainware for additional processing. So let's go ahead and jump over to Brainware now and look at this process that's going to happen. What I'm about to open up here is not something that people, end users, would ever go into and review or look at usually. This is a service that is going to run on a server, either in your data center or in our data center. And this is really where Brainware is doing the work. So we have ours set up in a way to where we have the different steps of the process within Brainware are separated out into different functions. And really the ones that we're going to focus on today here are 1, 2, and 3. The first thing that it's going to do, Brainware, this is Brainware here, this is called the runtime server. The first thing that it's going to do is import the transcripts into Brainware. So this is step 1, and if I click on statistics, you can see now it's already imported 5 transcripts into Brainware. So the next step is going to be the OCR, classification, and extraction step. This is probably the most important step, and I'm going to walk through this in a little bit more detail. So if I click on statistics, you can see that it has OCR'd and classified and extracted all the data on these transcripts already. So let's talk about these steps in a little bit more detail. Everyone says that they want to OCR their transcripts or their documents. That's certainly a very important step in this process, and the way that you get good OCR results is by getting a good, clean, scanned image. Again, removing those background images and those watermarks. And that's very important to get good OCR results. What OCR stands for is Optical Character Recognition. And what that means is it's going to take all of the text on that image, whether that's a scanned image like a TIFF document or a PDF, and it's going to put it in a format that a computer can read it, a computer readable format to where we can interact with the letters and words on that actual document. So once it's been OCR'd, we're going to classify that document. So that what that means is it's going to look at the words on the document, and it's going to determine if it's a high school, a military, or a college transcript on its own. So what that means is you can take all of your different types of transcripts and put them in the same batch of documents and scan them all in together. You don't have to separate out those transcripts into separate piles. So the only thing that you would need to do would be put a separator sheet in between the transcripts so Brainware knows where one transcript ends and the next transcript starts. So it'll automatically classify those transcripts. And then based off of that classification, we're going to extract the appropriate data off of that transcript. We'll extract different data, of course, from a college transcript than we would a high school transcript. Potentially on a high school transcript, we might want to get information like class rank or some other type of information, where on a college transcript, we maybe want to extract a degree that was earned on that transcript. So once, and the most important thing with Brainware for transcripts, in my opinion, is the extraction step, because we do not have to create any templates at all. We don't have to tell Brainware where the data is located on the transcript. So what that means is if you get a transcript from a brand new institution that you've never received a transcript from, you can run it through Brainware and it should be able to extract all that data without you telling it where the data is at. So there are going to be times where you need to go into Brainware and go through a step called verification. And what verification is it's saying it wants a person to go in and say, yes, this is the correct data, or no, this is not the correct data. So let's go ahead and jump into the verifier and see what that process looks like. So this, I'm going to open up our desktop verifier, but we also have a web verifier that you could go in and do this same step in any major web browser as well. So I'll just go ahead and open up the first one into the verifier, and this is a college transcript, so you can see the classification here. This is college, and then anything that's in yellow is what needs verification. So you can see on this particular transcript what needs verification is the applicant. So this would be a very quick step in most cases, but I am going to take my time and walk through this so we can all kind of get a good understanding of how Brainware works and what's going on in this process. So first of all, you can see that we have the institution up here. This does not need verification. It found American River College, 4700 College Oak Drive, Sacramento, California. And then you can see over here on the transcript, we have American River College, 4700 College Oak Drive, Sacramento, California. So what Brainware does is it looks at the top and the bottom of every page on the transcript and tries to identify any information that looks like it's the institution. And then it'll take that data and it will do a lookup into your institution list, whether that's in your SIS or it's exported out. It doesn't matter where it's being stored necessarily. We're going to do a lookup into your institution file, and if we are able to find the correct institution, then we're going to populate it right here into the institution section. That's where the institution ID came from. This is your institution ID, and this is all data coming out of your SIS or out of your institution file. So from this point on, we're not going to use the extracted data off of the transcript for the institution. We're going to use information out of your system of record. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the applicant. So in this case, we have a name on here. We also have a social security number, a date of birth, but unfortunately it did not find the correct applicant. So what you would need to do in this case is click on the applicant search button, and then this is going to give you a search into your applicant list, whether that's in your SIS or a CRM or some other system. And you can see here that Mark Newland was the first place candidate, and then Christina Spears was the second place candidate. And it appears that this is the correct Christina Spears. The date of births match up between the two, but at this point in time I could also click on item details, and that would show me more information from your system of record about this applicant as well. You can show as much or as little information here as you need to, but this would now help you identify that this is who this transcript belongs to. So it does appear to be the correct Christina Spears. So in this case, I could just double click or click OK right here. Also, if I didn't have an applicant show up right here, I could do a search and try to find that particular applicant in your system. Or we'll talk about if potentially the transcript came in before someone applied and before they're even in your system, what that process would look like also. But this is the correct applicant, so I'll just double click Christina Spears. Now you can see it populates her information into the applicant section of the Brainware form. I'm going to go ahead and click enter, which means this is the correct information. That's basically telling Brainware, yes, this is correct. And that's all that needed verification on this form, and it's ready to go to the next step of the process, which is most likely going to be a workflow step where somebody can review this data or maybe do additional processing like course equivalency lookups or so on. But before we release this, I want to talk about this in a little bit more detail. Like I said, we're just going to take our time and walk through this one, especially the first one. If we did not find that applicant after we did a lookup into your applicant list or your system, and maybe we received this transcript before someone applied, we would be able to set an exception or an invalid reason. That's what this drop-down list is up here. You can have different invalid reasons if you want to, but in that case that we were just discussing, I could say applicant not found, where in that case this could be sent then to an exceptions queue, where we could also put some additional processing on that queue to where maybe every night we can do a lookup into the applicant list and see if we find a potential match. And then if we do, then we could populate that information like this student ID into the correct location and then route it on for somebody to review. Or if the institution wasn't found, institution and applicant both weren't found, you can also have other invalid reasons here. One fairly common one that I hear about is duplicate institution. If I did a lookup and maybe this was yellow and it needed verification, I could do a lookup, and it's possible I would have had two American River colleges with the exact same address. You notice, or your workers notice, that this is a duplicate institution. I could flag that as duplicate institution here in my exception handling, and that could get routed to a specific queue where someone could go through the process of cleaning up the institution file, for example. Okay, so so again, this is all information out of your system of record as well as the applicant data. What was extracted and is going to be used off of this transcript, of course, is the date issued. If I click on this field right here, you can see that it puts in red a red box around the area that was actually extracted. Also, you can see the OCR results of anything that I roll over on this transcript. So this is not necessarily what was extracted. This is just what was OCR'd by the OCR engine. So this is the red box. This is the area that it used for the date issued. And you can see that this date is a June 03, 2011. But over here it's in a month, day/day/year format. So we do have the capability of doing date normalization into any date format that you need as well. It extracted the cumulative GPA, and again I'm looking for the red box. Once I click on this, I look at the image and I look for the red box. You can see the red box right here. This is the data that was extracted off of this transcript, and which is impressive because the cumulative GPA, you can see here we have a term GPA, a cumulative GPA, term cumulative. So in order for Brainware to find the correct cumulative GPA is fairly impressive in this case. Also, if you have trouble reading the information over here on the transcript, you can always look down here on the magnification bar, and it's going to magnify and put right in the middle exactly the data that was extracted for that particular field. So in this case, I can kind of read that, but whenever I click on a grade here, I have trouble reading some of these grades. So a lot of times I focus my attention down here on the magnification bar. And then that brings us down to the coursework. All of the coursework, of course, was extracted here as well, including the term, the course number, description, the grade earned, and grade points. Okay, and if there was a degree that was on this transcript, it would have extracted that information as well. So again, the only thing that needed verification on this particular transcript was the applicant. So I'm just going to go ahead and now release this one from the verification step and push it out to a workflow step where we can do additional processing on this transcript potentially, or maybe we just want to take all of this extracted data and push it into the SIS system or wherever the data that's being extracted here is going to eventually go. So whenever I remove that from verification, it's going to automatically bring up the next one in the verification step. This is a high school transcript, and you can see what needs verification. First, let's not look at this yellow. We're going to explain that in a second. What really needs verification on this is the applicant. It found Leah Rachel Culp at 327 Julie Drive, Moscow, Idaho, with a date of birth of January 22nd. So 327 Julie Drive, Moscow, Idaho, date of birth is the same. I can pretty confident that is the correct applicant, but at this point in time I could do a lookup here as well. So the reason why this needed verification, and of course I can see item details like we did earlier, is because of this percentage right here. This is called the confidence percentage. And my system is set up to where if it has to be 70 percentage points or greater in order for it to pass through this verification step. So if this was at 70%, it's possible that this would not have needed verification. Another reason why something would need verification in terms of the institution or the applicant is what's called the distance percentage. And that's the distance between this first place candidate and the second place candidate. So my distance percentage in my system is set up at 20 percentage points. So I passed the distance percentage threshold. I'm at 24% distance, but I didn't meet the 70 percentage of the confidence. And that's why this was flagged for verification. It wanted somebody to come in and look, even though it did find the correct applicant. So, and again, in this case, I just need to hit enter and say, yes, this is the correct information. And what was extracted is the date issued. You can see over here in the bottom right, the cumulative GPA was extracted. The graduation date was extracted, class year. And if this had class rank, class size, weighted class rank, or weighted GPA, that could have been extracted as well. You can see here under class rank, it's not ranked. And then the total credits earned was extracted as well. So, as an optional piece of Brainware for Transcripts, we do have the capability of getting high school coursework, just like we do with college coursework. So you can see here, this is where this section is. Again, this is completely optional. Most people do not currently put in high school coursework, but we have heard from quite a few institutions that there is a need for the high school coursework for a number of different reasons. Probably the most common that I hear is for placement reasons. If this person does well in math courses at Moscow High School, I can place them in this math course at our institution as opposed to this other math course, for an example. I won't go into too much detail on the high school coursework, but just know that it is an option and you do have the capability of extracting high school coursework that would include semester and quarter and final grade, so on. I will scroll down to the bottom. We do have some more sections here. If you wanted, you could extract the test scores off of this transcript as well. By default, Brainware will not extract the scores off of the transcript. But if you do want to extract those, it would be a very simple exercise. Again, very similar. If I needed to get any information off of this transcript, I can just lasso and double click it, and it's going to populate that information into the particular field. And it even gets easier with these because with English, I can just double click and hit enter, math, reading, science, composite. If there were others on there, I could extract those as well. And it's also, Brainware is doing a lot of checking to make sure that everything is within a certain threshold, make sure that these numbers are within the valid threshold, or for ACT or SAT. It's also doing a calculation on the GPA to make sure that it was in the same threshold of what's being calculated on the scoring. So that may be important if Brainware accidentally gets a different GPA on a college transcript, for example, and it doesn't get the cumulative GPA, then it would flag you and let you know that somebody can take a look at this GPA because Brainware doesn't think it's the correct one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and release this transcript from the verification step. It's going to bring up the next one. This is another high school transcript. So this is usually a very quick process. Again, it may show a lot of yellow, but not all of this is required information. On this one, you can see it did get class rank here, 87 out of 171, as well as the weighted GPA. I'm not going to go through any more of these transcripts through the verification step. What I'm going to do now is go in and show what it looks like once it comes back into an on-base lifecycle or workflow, and show those particular potential steps there. So I'm going to bring the Unity client back up, and I'm going to go to workflow. And now you can see we have our two documents that are come back from Brainware. This is the transcript itself, right, that went through the Brainware extraction engine. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the keywords. This is the metadata being stored for this particular document. And all of that information that was extracted from this document is now going to be stored. It's in a format that I could take this and do additional processing with this. I could take this data, if it's ready to be pushed into a system, I could do that at this point in time for high school. But maybe for college, I wanted to do some additional processing, like course equivalency lookups, for an example. So I wanted to show you this particular step, that all of this data is in the keywords. But most likely, whenever it comes in for someone to review, they are going to see it in a transcript E form or Unity form. So I have that set up on a timer, and the reason why is because I wanted to show you all the data in the keywords. But most likely the way it's going to come in, it's going to look more similar to something like this. Okay, so this is the college transcript Unity form here, and this is all the data that was extracted off. Now that I have all of this data, I can do more additional processing with it. I could recalculate GPAs, I can do course equivalency lookups. There's really unlimited at this point in time of what I can do with this data before maybe I push that into my system. Again, a very common one would be a course equivalency lookup. I would route this to a step of the process where it would go in and do a lookup into your system or wherever you're storing your course equivalencies. And I can do a lookup. I want to know CISP 370 for this particular institution, and I would be able to see if there was an equivalent course at your institution, and I would be able to display it potentially right below this course. If there's not an equivalency, OnBase can help you with the creation of those equivalencies as well. It can automatically create a form and populate all this data into that form, and utilizing our workflows, you could route the data around to different people if you needed to. And eventually, once you make that determination of what that equivalent course is, you could take that data and type it into the form and push it directly into your system as well. So we can create those rules, those equivalencies in your system also. So, but eventually what we want to do is take all of this data and upload it, whether it's gone through the course equivalency check or there's been a recalculation of GPAs, whatever it may be. The most important step of this is taking this data and pushing it into the system that you need this data to live in. Commonly that's an SIS system, right? Student Information System, where this is going. So just so you know, we have the capabilities for at least all of the major SISs out there to take this data and push it into those systems. And whenever that happens, all of your rules, everything that you would normally happen whenever that data gets entered would continue to happen as well. Also, I just want to make sure that we point out the exceptions. If there was flagged as applicant not found, it could get sent to any type of exception queue that we talked about. Any invalid reason that we showed earlier, we could have a separate process of cleaning up a duplicate institution, or the applicant wasn't found maybe because they haven't applied yet, and so on. So we can definitely manage those exceptions as well. At this point in time, we could really build this in a way to fit your needs and your processes. So if you wanted this to go for review, if you wanted course equivalency lookups and so on, all of that could happen through our workflow processes before the data is pushed into the system. Actually, we've talked to schools too where now they want the data pushed into the system and then they want to do additional processing. So really it's up to you, and we have the capabilities of fitting your needs with the transcript processing once the data has been extracted. That's really what I wanted to show you today. Thank you all so much for your time, and take care.